The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your health care needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in health care.
First item of business is the approval of the official agenda.
Mr. Mayor and Board, a number of items for your consideration for placement on the consent agenda to go down these items. And Alderman Lincoln, if you and the Mayor will double check my list here as I go through. On page 3, C, the 3, and I'm looking at an old agenda, not the revised one. So let's see here. It still would be page 3. Page 3 under the Office of the City Clerk, number 2, report of receipts and expenditures. Electric Department, E, items 1 and 2. Fire Department, items 1, 2, 3, and 4. Personnel, H, items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want one to go on, please.
Certainly. Alderman Perkins has requested that item 1 not be placed on the consent agenda. Public services in J, items 1, 2, 3, and then item or K, Sanitation Department, item 1. And Mr. Mayor, just another change, and I will ask if we can do this by essentially unanimous consent. If not, I will make a motion to that effect. We have recessing to our normal third week of the month, June 16, 2 weeks from tonight, which is our normal meeting. Both Alderman Davis and I will be out of town on university business that night, and simply cannot do a 8-hour trip back and forth to the coast, where we will be conducting the convention, summer convention for the Mississippi Association of Supervisors. We would like to move the date of the recess meeting to June the 23rd, 1 week later, June the 23rd. And Ms. Spruill, if there is agreement to do that, if not, I will make a motion, and we'll see. It is anticipated that there will be public notices, just like a call meeting or just like the notice we would give for any of the other special meetings in the newspaper, posted, all that thing, so the public will be aware of that move. Is there anyone on the board that objects to that move of that second meeting, the recess meeting of this month? Then if you would make the note June the 23rd.
How would you make the motion?
And I would move then approval of the agenda with the placement of the items on the consent agenda indicated, and the change in the date of the second meeting in June, the recess meeting of June.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Approval of the Board of Aldermen minutes for May the 19th. We have a motion to approve and have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Announcements and comments by the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen. I think Mr. Lincoln has something he would like to say in regard to an announcement.
Yes, sir, Chief. The family of the late Jimmy Raines extends their gratitude to the police Chief David Lindley and the Starkville Police Department Honor Guard for their professionalism and courtesy during the funeral services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it brings us to this time of the exciting time in our program where we allow citizens to give 3 minutes of their opinions and statements. Who would like to do that tonight, this afternoon? Mr. Turner, I believe, it looks like he's ready.
Good evening to the mayor and board. Citizens that we're proud that we have gotten through these 4 years. And like we're just like we're nervous for like no, we'll get ready for the next 4 years. 2 questions that we would like to ask our soon to be judge Faye. What is the jail time that you caught in Belgium? Either if you caught bribing.
If you're what now?
Caught bribing someone.
Bribing?
Yeah.
Well, it depends, because that's a felony. So, I'm not sure, but that'd be a 5-year statute, 5-year prison sentence probably, but I don't know for sure, because that's a felony, and that's not handled in municipal court.
Mr. Turner, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to have their 3 minutes?
My name is Sabrina Campbell, again with Ward 7. I noticed that we have a public hearing for the first public hearing of the purpose of amending the city historical code ordinances. I again would like to remind you that I've been here for the past few months regarding the previous 9-foot fence next to our home that's causing not only safety issues for me and my family, but as well as other neighbors. Also that it is a public nuisance, and as time wears away, that fence or that wall will become a terrible eyesore within the community. So I'm asking that you remember that we've had, again, 2 incidents where our house was almost invaded. I could not tell who the person was because when they ran, the fence blocked me from seeing them. And the second incident of when a child came behind the fence because it's so tall, we could not see them, and almost hit this child. But again, I ask that this fence not be grandfathered, become non-conformity in the new ordinance, but the simple fact is that my family's safety and our home has been there longer than the fence has, and it's serving absolutely no purpose other than the fact that it's an empty lot and somebody's power because they want a wall up. So again, I ask that the board, the mayor, upcoming mayor, however the situation may end, take in consideration that you do have the power in order to ensure my family's safety and to make sure that our tax dollars are used for us as well. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to take their 3 minutes at this time?
Good evening. My name is Julie Williams. I'm the co-director of the I Am Somebody Restoration Ministry Outreach, and our office is located at 102 and a half on Lafayette Street. And our motto is reaching out and touching and changing lives of the young men and women and the boys and girls here in our community who have been deeply hurt and feel that they don't see their way. There are some that are dropouts, unemployed, and we want to help restore them mentally and spiritually. There are some that are unemployed. There are some that have low self-esteem. And some kids have parents that are incarcerated. There are some children that have parents here that are deceased. And we want to provide certain type of program to help them to become citizens and to help them teach and educate them to feel better about their community. And we also want to help them with their attitudes and their anger and their behavior and how to control themselves and help them to succeed in life and let them know that education is needed and how to motivate them. We want to help tutor them. There are some that are not getting work done at home. I don't know job it is, but anyway, we want to help tutor them in math and English. We want to help them to avoid drugs and alcohol and help prevent pregnancy. That there are our kids, our children, our community really need help in areas that a lot of people do not see. And so we're asking the Board of Aldermen to put us, and consider us in your budget and to help us in the future as we provide certain programs to help these children in our community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Then we'll move on. We have a public appearance by John Wilson.
I'm glad I chose to come tonight, though I know a lot of our minds are on other things, like at various polling places. But this will be my last opportunity to speak to several of you, and thank you for 4 years that you have supported the museum. And again, at the front row. But we've had, since we reopened in December, we've had a marked increase in interest in the museum with various groups coming. Most of you have been to the museum, but several of you have not, and that has been your investment. We continue to get items donated to the museum, and we're seeking funds to help conserve the items that have been donated that we're not using at the moment. We're also cooperating with MSU, the landscape architecture group, to help with drainage, and also MSU freshman program called A Slice of Starkville. They'll do a project with us. And of course, with the greater partnership, we partner with them with our community series and any tours they come up with. We have initiated a Friends of the Museum to have outreach to the community and a think tank to brainstorm for the future of the museum. We're also revising the bylaws of the museum and anticipate increasing the number of board appointees from both the county and the city. We've come a long way in these 4 years that you've been board members, but we still have concerns that need addressing that the new group will have to hear from me about. The most pressing is a very antiquated and inefficient heating and cooling system and drainage problems under and around the building. Edward Kemp is trying to help me work on that, but it's a slow process. Hopefully within the next 4 years we get that figured out. I want to thank you for your help and your support, and some of you will be back and will be on the front row again. I especially want to thank Mayor Camp, Alderman Corey, Cox, and McLaurin for their support of the museum. Also Lynn Sproul, Tammy Tyndall, and Glenn Beverly. Glenn is sort of an unsung hero, but he has come to help us get the grounds looking so much better. It's real important that the outside looks good so people want to come inside. And of course, Edward Kemp has been wonderful in trying to help us with some of our problems. Thank all of you, and I'll see some of you next July.
Thank you. Does any of the board members have any questions?
Do you want to know where your money was spent? It was spent very well.
Sure was.
It was your best investment.
And come see it, huh?
Yes, come see it. If you haven't been, you need to come.
This brings us now to public hearings. This is the first public hearing for the purpose of amending the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 82, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, 82-5, parentheses B, parentheses 4, to delete the second mention of the phrase "or exhibits" from the reference code paragraph. Ms. Davis, this is something I think that you asked for this to come forth according to
Did you
this
say
court.
something about fences when you were just reading that?
I said a parentheses. Right?
Oh, okay,
No, there's nothing in there about fences. Just
Okay.
parentheses.
okay. In our recent codification of city ordinances, reading through it, something struck me in this particular code section. I talked with the police chief about it, and he and I both agreed that we ought to address this, and that is that this prohibits exhibitions, certain types of exhibitions from being held where places where alcohol is consumed, and we were afraid that this particular code section would potentially place the Cotton District Arts Festival in violation of this ordinance if they do the medieval fighting like they have done in the past with exhibitions or the karate exhibitions. And it does nothing other than that. Anything, it doesn't allow boxing, tough man competitions or anything of that nature. And Chief has assured me that he doesn't feel this will have a negative impact on public safety in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
And I believe it will.
So that's basically the purpose, and based on our policy that we passed earlier, this will be the first public hearing. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor, for public hearing.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to express himself in regard to this first public hearing?
Well, I would like to know, if I could, what is it considering? I mean, does it consider the fences part of it? Is it
This
business
doesn't
order?
have anything to do with fences at all.
Okay, just check. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I close the first public hearing. We'll have the second one, I believe, the 23rd. Under the mayor's business, consideration of amending the policy establishing a process for considering an appointment of applicants to city boards, commissions, and committees. Lynn, would you kind of bring us up to date on that, please?
Yes, Mr. Board. This was called to my attention when we had the error in posting the appointments from the last time that occasioned your veto. So I went back and pulled that up, and it did indeed say 2 weeks, and so that was the reason we did a republication. But in looking at it, it also, we've had problems over these last 4 years of filling these positions. So my concern, and I've talked with department heads about it, my concern is that if we are required to publish for 2 weeks, and then it's not allowed to be open if no one fills it, if we can't fill it in 2 weeks, if we don't have appointments in 2 weeks, or letters of interest in 2 weeks, then it's just an ongoing thing. So what I did was I created a 2-week deadline, but then it would remain open until filled, so that perhaps, if somebody comes in a month or so and you find someone who's willing to serve, then we won't have to go through that process all over again. So that was my attempt in making this revision. And I just tried to make it a little more detailed in what we would do, the fact that we would send letters of congratulations and terms, and keep a list of boards and commissions that's current, and that sort of thing. So it's just, in essence, an opportunity for us to be a little more formalized in the process.
Questions from the board members?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to be recognized.
You may.
Mr. Mayor, members of this board, we are 35 days before the first meeting of the next Mayor and Board of Aldermen. The intentions here may be good about the consideration and review of these proposed policies and procedures. It is my personal opinion that it would be prudent for this board to allow these policies that we're now considering in our final days to be considered by the next board, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I don't say that because I am going to be a member of the next Mayor and Board of Aldermen, but I think it's only fair for these substantive decisions to be made. I don't see anything earth-shattering or any urgent or necessitous situations that warrant the implementation of these policies. There are numerous policies on this, or a few at least, on this agenda tonight, and that would be my personal preference. And and if the board certainly moves forward to adopt this policy, then just since I have the floor at this time, I'm going to vote against each one of them. And let me go ahead and just kind of fast forward since we're talking about policies and this rule. I understand there's a matter on the agenda that we'll soon get to about this policy that was sent to the Infrastructure Committee at the last meeting. And of course, I had a conversation right before it today, and you mentioned to me that the Infrastructure Committee was meeting, and certainly I did not get an invitation to that meeting. I'm not saying that was your fault, but I'll address that further later. But I think it would be good if the board would just actually table the consideration and discussion of these policies. The new board, as you say, will be here in 35 days, so I think that'll be a good thing to do. So that would be my personal suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other response?
Mayor, we have had some issues here recently that embarrass the city as well as the applicants, and it seems appropriate that we go ahead with this policy, and I would recommend two modifications to the policy as proposed, and that under section B, that the paragraph start with "the city clerk is directed," and then under section F, that paragraph start, "the city clerk will maintain," and the idea is having one person responsible and accountable for the implementation of this policy. But with those two amendments, I would move we adopt this policy.
Second.
Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting this policy, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Consideration of a policy to establish a process for the electric department to consider insert requests for electric department invoice mailing.
Yes, sir, we have had numerous requests, and this is merely an attempt to give Mr. Hadaway some guidance if the board so chooses, to let him assist in, or to assist him in making determinations of what entities would be appropriate to add their flyers or whatever it is that they've asked for to go into the department, into the electric department buildings. Obviously, you know, if he has some question or that there is some issue that he thinks doesn't fit, then it can come to the Board of Aldermen for ultimate decision. But Ed frequently has requests for things from various entities. So we're just trying to give him some opportunity for some guidance from the board.
Mr. Chairman, I would recognize.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Or am I recognized?
You are.
Thank you. Thank you for your protocol there. Ms. Sproul, again, I'm going to vote against this policy because my earlier statement was later in the term. Also, when this board gets very rushed, a lot of things that's not considered in these policies. For example, one thing I want to mention to you, look at item number 5. The additional increment cost of the insert shall be borne by the entity. I think you probably would, and just my suggestion, of course, the board may not want to adhere to it, I need my opinion on it. There should be some language in there, I think, would, for say that, for example, the additional increment cost of the inserts will be like shall be borne. I think you want to get your money in advance because you won't have a problem collecting your money. You know, a lot of times people want to get the service, whatever professional service, whether it's a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist, whatever it may be, they may not want to pay after the service is rendered. So I just thought I'd just give that friendly suggestion, but of course I'll vote against the policy on it. But I want to share that with you.
I appreciate that.
Right, if the board so chooses to adopt that language. I just want to give my insight.
Thank you, Roy. Do we have any other alderman input with this particular segment?
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized as well?
You may.
Is the way you envision this policy, does it allow any organization or any entity or any individual to submit a request to place in a City of Starkville Electric Department bill?
Well,
Or is it, do you consider it limited to just City of Starkville?
I consider governmental or governmental sponsored entities. For example, the Kimberly County Humane Society had put in a request at one time. The landfill put in a request at one time. So that was the affiliation. And if there's some question in that, then Mr. Hadaway can certainly come to the board for guidance. But that was the intent, was to have an affiliation with the government, with the City of Starkville, or with some governmental entity.
Would you
Ms. Brule, it seems to me that given this, that instead of placing that burden on the electric department general manager, I would be of the opinion that it ought to automatically come to the board of Aldermen.
I'll be happy to make that adjustment. That's all I need. Now, we've not done that before, so if that's what you want, then, I don't know, Ed, how many times do you get requests? Because I know we've had 3 or 4 different requests recently in the last year.
It's 3 or 4 every year, something like that. It's not a whole lot.
So there shouldn't be any
Well,
problem.
no, my own questions, I'm wanting to make sure I understand that this is something that y'all want to take on.
I would think if it's a mail out from the electric department, something's going in, the board of Aldermen ought to approve it.
Okay?
I would. What does the rest of the board think about that?
Okay.
And thus relieve the electric department of making a yes, no, and then they'll have to end up bringing it anyway, probably. if there's a yes, no question about it.
If there's a no, certainly I'm sure they might feel that way. Okay, I'll be happy to make that determination, or make that change.
So do we have any other questions from board members?
Maybe Ms. Roll, how do you define governmental? Do you define that as City of Starkville, or do you consider that any
I will consider
governmental?
whatever this board would like it to be considered, but I consider it, if I were to make the definition, which I can certainly do, I'll consult with Mr. Favor on that, if you'd like to add a definition to it, but City of Starkville, governmental entity could be the county.
Or it could be the county, it could be the school district, there are lots of governmental entities in
Exactly.
the commonly accepted use of the term.
Exactly. So, affiliated the museum, the
Yeah.
Humane Society, those entities that we have, it's essentially the same thing we do, obviously different venue, but the same thing we do with the website. If there is a coordination with the airport, for example. So, those kinds of links. If you'd like a more detailed definition, we can certainly work something up for you.
Why don't we just go ahead and insert some language right here now about approval by the board in number 7.
Okay?
It appears to be where it would go.
Okay. All right.
And said request will be referred to the Board of Aldermen for a decision at the next available meeting.
And you got it.
Hey, we also have to change the language of Alderman Perkins that suggested for point 4.
Yes, I did. I noted that.
Fine, is that,
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
It talks about the appeals.
Right.
It's not necessary.
would you ask Ms. Tindall?
she has it.
Okay.
And we can simply scratch number 9.
Yes. Okay.
Point number 9.
Those changes, would someone have a motion?
I would move that the electric department insert policy be approved, including all the changes just specified.
Second.
Well, the motion is second. Is there further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Our next item is considering approval of an application. Phyllis is here tonight to explain. This is some good news for a change.
Good evening.
All right.
Hi, thank you. And let me say thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight about the ever so popular stimulus package money. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act has provided the state of Mississippi's Community Development Block Grant Program with $8 million. Yesterday, through an email, the Golden Triangle Planning and Development District was notified that the city of Starkville has been asked by the Mississippi Development Authority to submit an application in the amount of $937,538 for the construction of a fire station. Applications will be due a week on Friday, which is June the 12th, no later than 4 p.m. The act requires that the construction contract be awarded within 120 days of the award to the governmental entity. Everything else pretty much is the same as a regular community development block grant. At least 51% of the people benefiting from the project have to be of low to moderate income. Money has to go towards public infrastructure. An environmental clearance has to take place. Professional services have to be required. In fact, we'll need the services of a professional engineer or architect to provide us with a preliminary cost estimate for the project. And I am here to answer any questions and entertain a motion for the submittal of an application on behalf of the city of Starkville in the amount of $937,538 for the construction of the fire station.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this is a matter we need to move forward with, and it's been discussed for years. Former Chief Grantham has been talking about a new fire station for the longest, and the city's has not identified any funds in the past, and he's been a strong proponent of this, and I certainly support any matter comes up tonight in the affirmative, so I'm all excited about it, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward with it.
Other comments?
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you and Golden Triangle going to be responsible for all federal reporting on the project as far as dollars spent and data collected vis-a-vis the stimulus bill and the extended reporting requirements they're having on that particular pot of money?
Yes. The basic guidelines are the same, however, there are additional reporting requirements. Job creation is the #1 goal. And the application has been streamlined, but even the application has estimates as far as job creation within it. And that's not so much just job creation upon completion of the expenditure of money, it's the job creation through the construction process as well.
Are y'all going to follow up and make sure that we comply with Buy American Act and Davis Bacon Act and all those types of things?
We will. I have provided you with a copy of the standard resolution for submittal of an application which outlines the responsibilities of the Planning and Development District. I can read that if you would
That's
like.
okay, I just want to make sure
But
that you're here tonight telling us you're going to handle that for us.
Yes, you know, my motto has always been that I am too young to retire, but too old to be marketable. So in essence, I'm not ready to go to the House, so I will do everything within my power to ensure that the money is spent correctly, that all reporting requirements have been met, as we have with other projects.
Right. With particular attention paid to the additional reporting requirements.
Correct.
Thank you.
And this is due when, Philip?
We provided.
A week from Friday.
Yes, and I apologize for coming to you with this at the last minute. Let me reiterate, the state has received $8 million. You have been offered to submit an application for almost $1 million. And in fact, you're the only applicant within our 7 counties that has been requested to submit an application. This request does not guarantee a funding, but more, without the request, certainly you're not going to stand a chance of getting funding. But everything is fast track, absolutely fast track. A lot faster than I would like. You do what you got to do.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, just one question, just a housekeeping matter. Phil, it's just a technical question. I mean, you keep your podium over there. At this last paragraph, I just want to make sure there's no problem. The resolution does not be amended. For say that Robert D. Kemp, in sufficient capacity as the mayor of the city of Starkville, is hereby authorized to advertise, conduct required public hearings. Now, my question to you is that will this mayor be able to sign everything within this time frame, or should we just say that the mayor of the city of Starkville? I'm just only asking, just try to make sure that we have to come back in and amend it later. So, while it's before the board, it just doesn't matter to me personally. I'm just trying to say, do we need to say that the mayor of the city of Starkville in sufficient capacity? In other words, if you think that we can do all these papers before the end of this term, this language is fine.
Well, the application papers can all be signed, but this resolution also gives him the authority to sign anything forward. So yes, sir, you are correct. We better change that.
Let's just start simply with the word "the mayor." Huh? Does that agree with you, Philip?
Sure.
Okay, so we're starting a sentence about midpoint with the mayor of the city of Starkville. And Mayor Camp will sign as the papers are presented during the term.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, you're welcome. Thank you. Motion.
I would move then adoption of the resolution authorizing Golden Triangle Planning and Development District prepare and submit a community development block grant recovery program application for the city of Starkville for the purpose of constructing the fire station in and around the amount of $937,538.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you.
Board business. Consideration of board authorization for the adoption of an electric department schedule, rules, regulations, that include the establishment of departmental policy. I believe our infrastructure committee report on that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and let me just give the committee report. The infrastructure committee met this afternoon. Alderman Perkins was not in attendance, and he has indicated that he failed to receive notification. An email was sent out to the usual group of individuals for notification, and I indicated to Ms. Tyndall that sometimes Alderman Perkins does not get or check email, that I would take responsibility for printing off a copy and faxing it to him, which slipped my mind to do. He did receive notification by email. But in any case, the infrastructure committee, 2/3 of us met this afternoon to talk about the electric department's request for a change in the deposit policy of the city, the department, relative to electric utility rates. We had a pretty vigorous discussion of this. In summary fashion, the problem very simply is this. The electric department is losing money. There is a red ink situation with some individuals leaving town and failing to pay 1 or more months of their electric bill. The deposit on file is insufficient to cover this loss. Of course, accounts are referred to collection agencies. Collection agencies make some attempt to collect the accounts, but at the moment we are to the point where the current deposits of the department are insufficient to at least neutralize or stem the losses of the department from persons that have left town failing to pay their electric accounts. In our somewhat transient community, of course, most of the loss comes from tenants, from renters of units around town, as opposed to home owners, just a fact of our community, one that's accepted. There had been in place a policy of a certain deposit amount for homeowners, a certain deposit amount for renters, but again, the amounts, given the losses of the department, are insufficient. The deposit amounts are insufficient to cover or at least neutralize the losses of the department. The department has proposed a process whereby a online company would indicate at the time a person came to sign up for electric service whether or not that particular individual had a utility credit rating. Remember when it was first talked, I jumped to the conclusion we were talking about credit score, general credit rating, so forth. That's not the case. A utility credit rating of a certain amount that would facilitate being given a certain level of deposit, or in some cases, as some organizations do it, no deposit at all. We talked this thoroughly this afternoon. Alderman Cox and I left the meeting with the electric department representatives having a list of additional information that we need to make a good, intelligent, informed decision upon this. The Infrastructure Committee will meet again, and Ms. Tindall, you of course please fax to Alderman Perkins, and I will also try to remember to fax to Alderman Perkins the notice of the meeting. But we will meet again, and if we have the information we need, then we will be bringing a policy to you for consideration. Now, as was said at the meeting, Mr. Devlin, if the electric department's going along, can water sewer be far behind? One of the instructions to the electric representatives at the meeting was to get with you and discuss this matter. No sense dealing with electric, then coming back with a water sewer saying, oh, by the way, you know. So we need to deal with this, and you need to get with Mr. Hathaway and the other gentleman, and y'all discuss this, and then we'll talk more about this at our next meeting. So the committee does not have a recommendation for you tonight. I will say, after doing some personal checking around, this approach to deposit situations is really becoming an industry standard. I was surprised to hear that, but this is the wave of technology, so we need to give it some consideration. Again, the problem becomes something is going to have to be done with the deposit situation to at least neutralize and hopefully stem the losses of the department from people who leave town and do not pay one or more months of utility bills, and where a deposit that has been placed is insufficient to cover the amount that they have skipped out, if you will, on. And so we will discuss this some more and bring a recommendation to you. Inherent in all of this is that, remember, existing customers, the situation remains the same. This is for new customers. There was also discussion of something that, oh goodness, we discussed 20 some odd years ago, paying interest on deposits, just all sorts of different things. But the more current thing, perhaps a return of a deposit after X amount of time, good payment, on-time payment, that type of thing. Inherent in the policy would be some provision that should someone show good payment of utility bills and get a deposit return, but then start falling behind, the deposit could be reinstated. You've got to look at all angles of this type of thing. So we hope to have a recommendation for you at the recess meeting of this month, assuming the electric department and Mr. Devlin, we might as well go on and address this now instead of doing this and then coming back again for addressing that. Because I assume you've been thinking along some of these lines, have you not? Yes. Okay, though we have not had discussion about that. So, Mr. Mayor and Board, that's where we stand on that matter.
Thank you for your report. Brings us now to the office of the city clerk. Request for approval of the city of Starkville claims docket.
Clerk, we recommend approval.
Yes, I am.
I'm glad you were here last meeting. It seemed like there was a lot of questions raised at the last, that's why I asked you to recommend approval. I move approval, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
How many nays was that? 2?
3.
3. It passes 4-3. The next item is personnel. And I believe the request is adoption of a proposed personnel policy on donating leave time.
Yes, sir, that's the request, Mr. Mayor. This policy is being presented based on a dire need that is occurring now. With an employee who is off from work with a very serious illness, has exhausted their leave time. We have employees that have come forward and requested that we consider adoption of this policy to allow other employees to donate leave time It is an urgent request. The employee with the illness is, as I say, has exhausted leave time as of now, and is facing a matter of leave without pay, and is facing pretty catastrophic financial burdens. So it is a matter of urgency in the opinion of the employees that have come to us to request that we look at this. We've looked at policy based on policies of other municipalities and other organizations and presented to you a policy that we think will meet the needs and allow consideration for employees to donate time to other employees in dire circumstances.
Board members have questions?
Mr. Mayor, let me be very brief. I'm going to vote against for the reason I stated earlier, but Mr. Favor, just for the record here, let me just ask you this. Have you reviewed this policy to see does it meet any and all legal requirements that may be required by state and or federal law? And also, has this policy been tried and tested? Meaning that is this policy patterned after any other municipality that you may be aware of? So could you just speak to that just for informational purposes, please, sir?
As far as the first issue that you brought up, I have not seen anything in reviewing the policy. I only reviewed it in the packet when I received the packet. And I don't see anything on my review of it that's in violation of any federal or state law that I know of right now. Secondly, in the second issue, I'm not and have not reviewed any donation leave policies from other municipalities. I am aware that they do have the process whereby you can donate leave policies, but as far as me actually reviewing their policy in relation to this policy, no, I have not done that.
Thank you, Mr. Favor.
Mr. Mayor, even though Alderman Perkins' comment was addressed to City Attorney Favor, the university has in existence and has for some time now a donation of leave policy and has used it as necessary. And to my knowledge, there have been no problems with it, and it's recognized as appropriate by the Public Employees Retirement System and so forth.
If I might address, I did review the Mississippi Code as it relates to this and patterned this policy after the Mississippi Code, and also after policies of the City of Columbus and the City of Tupelo that have policies in existence that this very closely follows.
Did you check the university policy?
Yes, I did. And this closely follows the university policy also.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would move approval then of the implementation of the donation of leave policy and its addition to the personnel manual of the City of Starkville.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to report on the status of the curbside recycling project.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of things to report, and I will have a very thorough report after the next meeting of the recycling committee. You will recall the grant application that was submitted to the Department of Environmental Quality for recycling. They finally have gotten to the review status, and I spoke at length with the individual from DEQ that handled that. The committee reviewing had a number of questions. Their preference, of course, is that we would use recycling bins and all this type of thing, an expensive buy-in to begin with. I went through all our rationale for bags and this type of thing. He indicated he would carry that to the committee, reviewing. I offered to appear before the committee if that would be appropriate, or submit some additional information in writing. I suspect we will hear from this pretty soon. As far as the recycling, we are proceeding with bids from bag vendors, and we'll be moving right along.
Ms. Boyd, do you have anything to add?
Do you have any questions for me?
Well, it sounds like you might have had a presentation. I'd love to hear what you've got for us.
Basically, something.
Okay.
Dr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I did not realize Ms. Ball was going to give a report, Sharon.
Sorry, thank you. We had two people here that wanted to give reports. Okay. Thank you, both of them. We need to go into closed session to determine going into executive session. Do I hear a motion that we're going to closed session? Do I have a second? Do I hear all those in favor say aye?
Yeah.